Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World with me, John Jordan. So this is our regular roundup, looking back at what was happening for blockchain games in May 2020. And as it happened, there was kind of quite a lot happening. Not all of it very good, most of it not very good, particularly on Ethereum. So the first graph here, I'm showing just three games. Otherwise, the graph gets a little bit complicated. But these are pretty much the kind of three top games on Ethereum have really been for the last kind of couple of months. So we're not losing any kind of granularity here. So what we've got starting on the 1st of January 2020, so we've got the 5 months of 2020 so far. On the horizontal axis, vertical axis, we have daily active unique wallets. So measuring effectively the kind of number of users. So we can't say every wallet is an individual user. There may be one user may have multiple wallets, but so it's our rough guide on this matter. So start of January, we had My Crypto Heroes, about 3,700, something like that. And as we've gone on into the year, we've seen this fairly substantial decline. So always with Ethereum, because it's still a proof of work blockchain, that you have to pay a small fee called a gas fee to get any transactions saved into the block. Ethereum games have always been susceptible to gas price. So when we have these drops off here, so we have one at the start of February, we have one big one mid March, and then basically what's happened in April into May. This has been driven by the gas price spiking. So what happens is, particularly on My Crypto Heroes, some of this activity is people buying NFTs, but most of it is people logging in every day to collect their kind of free GUM token. So GUM is just a in-game token. It's not a cryptocurrency token, but you get GUM every day for free, a small amount if you pay 0.1 ETH every month. So there's this kind of like sort of like a VIP subscription service, however you want to call it. If you pay 0.1 ETH a month, you get 30 days of logging in every day. You pay the gas fee and you get this free GUM, which you can use in game to do things. So this is basically what we're measuring here for My Crypto Heroes. This is 3,500 or so, 3,700 people logging in once a day to get their free GUM. Obviously, what happens is you don't get very much GUM. So if the price of the gas fee goes up a lot, if it moves from if it moves from like 10 cents or 20 cents to like $1 or even higher, then obviously people stop doing it for a few days. They go, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna not log in for a couple of days, and when the gas price goes back to normal, I'll log back in again. So you see these kind of spikes. You see these kind of downward spikes. What's happened here is we've seen the gas price stay consistently high. So actually, the gas price has been peaking at like 500% average, which is very similar to what we saw here in mid-March when everyone was selling off their crypto because of COVID-19. So there's not been the opportunity for players to start playing again. So basically, you've had now 6 weeks of people just going, I can't play this game anymore. And actually, we've gone down from so we started in April at about over 3,000. We ended April on just over 2,000. And now we're down here, and we've actually gone, under 500 on certain days. So the only people who are playing now are people with who are happy to spend the gas or we're picking up NFT trading. So that's what's happened. Similarly, see for Brave Frontier Heroes. I mean, a broadly similar game again as My Crypto Heroes, same developer, same kind of Japanese audience. Very steady daily active unique wallet audience, about kind of 1,500. It's actually continued into throughout April. It was kind of okay. It had some drops here. Again, we kind of see obviously when My Crypto Heroes drops, then Brave Frontier Heroes drops, and Crypto Dozer drops as well. We can just see these drops, these kind of drop days when the gas price is too high. But again, Brave Frontier Heroes in May has kind of collapsed. So it hasn't dropped as much as My Crypto Heroes, but it's more than halved. And then I've just put in Crypto Dozer as well, which is a smaller game, different mechanics going on there. And that was in a general decline anyway. So started off at about kind of 600 and then ended up down a few hundred. They've actually rebooted, so they've actually got version 2 up now. That just launched. But gas price is expensive, so people aren't playing. So we've basically seen a massive decline in the amount of people playing Ethereum games. It's actually, depending on how you work it out, it's actually like 87%, depending on how which games you look at. So pretty substantial. What's worrying about this is this high gas price seems to, well, we don't really have any idea when it's going to stop. So it's kind of being caused by Tether. So a lot of Tether transactions are now going through Ethereum, and that seems to have clogged up the blockchains. Also some high risk dApps that are spending a lot of gas, kind of spamming the system. Things are kind of happening. So there's different kind of side chains launching. There is actually people are now. Looks like Tether is going to be, some Tether activity is going to be offboarded to some new side chains. So that may pick up over time, but we don't know now whether, even if the gas price goes back to normal, are all these My Crypto Hero players, are they going to come back again? Are we going to have like a, talking in the general economy, are we going to have a V-shaped economy, or actually are these people going to go, well, I've not played it for 6 weeks, can't be bothered, they've lost the habit. So that's the where we are with Ethereum. Obviously, in the long term, we have things like Ethereum 2.0 coming, which will very much change the system. So there won't be gas fees anymore. It'll be a staking system. With other things, other kind of, Matic have just launched their kind of network. We have Scale Labs launching their what they call elastic sidechain. So we have these things where developers can now be building on sidechains in a more coherent manner than we have done before. We wait and see what the impact is, though. In contrast, we can look at the top 3 blockchain games on EOS. So EOS has suffered from its own congestion problems for a number of months now. But actually, we've not seen gaming impacted that much, or at least some games have not been impacted that much. This is partly because developers can set up their developers on the EOS blockchain can basically set up their accounts where they're staking for their users. So EOS uses proof of stake mechanics, which people have to stake tokens, and if the network gets congested, you have to stake more tokens in order to get your transaction through. So there is a similar mechanic to gas fees. You're kind of like having to buy more tokens to stake. You get them back again, but there is obviously a similar mechanic to getting transactions through. And I think EOS developers have dealt with this, have had to deal with this for a longer period of time. And there are services where you can kind of rent EOS to stake, so they seem to have a better kind of robustness. Anyway, so the 3 games here are Crypto Dynasty, which used to be called EOS Dynasty, but now is coming to Ethereum, so they've renamed it Crypto Dynasty. And then we have Prospectors in yellow and Upland in red. So again, starting at the start of the year in January. So really at the start of the year, Crypto Dynasty, or EOS Dynasty as it was then, was kind of like fighting it out with My Crypto Heroes to be the most popular game, at least in terms of daily active unique wallets. It was quite kind of patchy, quite a lot of volatility for EOS Dynasty. We had these kind of big peaks, up to over 6,000 here at the start of January, probably driven by certain events going on there. I mean, EOS games don't really have the same NFT ownership model as Ethereum games, so they tend to be driven more by getting tokens and getting dividends and having their own internal tokens than Ethereum games. So there's a slightly different mechanic going on. But EOS Dynasty had this kind of, kind of rises, then drops down to this very steady period in February, March, drops down again in March. And then we see this quite strong kind of upwards, kind of sustained kind of a growth into April and May. So kind of well over 4,000 there. This weird peak up here at 7,000. Don't know what that's going on there, but we can also see Upland also had a similar peak. So probably something going on the EOS system there. Prospectors didn't have that, so I don't know if that's just a kind of quirk of the data. But compared to what's happening on Ethereum, My Crypto Heroes has seen growth. I would say this game is a mobile game. It's kind of a copy of an old game called EOS Knights that was very popular at one point. Very strong Chinese audience, very focused around Chinese mythology, Chinese theme. So that's where that audience is coming from. Not really. I wouldn't think many players in the West will see how Crypto Dynasty on Ethereum kind of works out. So Prospectors is actually launched on EOS and Wax. Wax is a similar blockchain, uses the EOS SDK, but in terms of Prospectors on EOS, which has been around for quite a long time, it's actually kind of into a bit of a decline now. So started the year over 2,000, down to about 1,500, but yeah, pretty steady. It's not falling off the edge of a cliff. And then we have Upland, which is a mobile kind of Monopoly style game based on kind of real world locations, but it's not a location based game. That makes sense, and that kind of launched. So you're kind of seeing these kind of upticks when it actually launches. Again, another mobile based game, and actually it's seen pretty decent growth. So it's now breached 2,000 daily active unique wallets for the first time, and they're kind of expanding. So the first city they had was San Francisco. They're expanding to New York now. So they seem to be kind of doing okay. So that's what's going on with EOS. So there are other blockchain games out there. So this is looking at a whole bunch of games. And what I've done here is typically what we do is we look at the 30-day trailing average. So the graphs we looked at before have been individual days, so the daily active unique wallets on individual days. Now we're looking at the trailing average. So every point here is basically looking at that was the activity that day and the month previous. So basically just smooths out any of the volatility. So you don't have these big peaks and troughs depending on kind of weird things going on in the game or the Ethereum gas price. So it just gives you a better idea of trends. So a new game we're looking at here is Splinterlands. So Splinterlands is actually runs on the Steam blockchain, or actually now it actually runs on the Hive fork of Steam. Won't really go into that. It's kind of quite a complicated thing, but it's always been pretty popular. And we can see now it and Crypto Dynasty, that EOS game we were looking at, basically they're the kind of one, or they're the ones fighting out for the top spot. Splinterlands is interesting because it runs on on a different sort of blockchain. Steam was actually kind of an early version of EOS, really. But it's much easier to log in. The blockchain kind of elements are kind of not in your face. So it's quite a simple system. You can pay in the game using you can use crypto or you can use PayPal. So it's quite nice. So we'll see how that one continues to grow. I mean, as I say, it's just switching blockchain, so it may see a decline in the short term. But there's those two. There's Prospectors. So in this case, I've put a 2 there. So I've added the Prospectors on EOS and Wax together. So we can see it's actually pretty kind of 50-50. It has pretty much the same audience, pretty much the same size of audience on EOS as Wax. Potentially there could be people playing across both, of course, but over the 30-day trailing average, we're seeing it declined, went under 3,000 in end of April, and now it's kind of come back up again. So those are the top 3. Very clear. We have My Crypto Heroes in decline generally, and then falling off a cliff. Similar for Brave Frontier Heroes. So these are these Ethereum games where the gas fee is hitting them. CryptoDozo, again, we saw that at the bottom, kind of harder to see the decline because it's smaller. And then we have Upland, which is on the up. So that's kind of broadly what's happened across some of the most popular blockchain games running across different blockchains. The final graph we'll look at is the top 5. Okay, so in this graph, what I've done is I've looked at every day what are the top 5 blockchain games in terms of daily active unique wallets. So it's pretty much that set of games we just looked at. I just had a big list, and I looked at I ranked them all every day, which is the top 5. So every day there's a different 5, kind of potentially. But the idea of looking at this is, as My Crypto Heroes drops out of the top 5, then Uplands comes in. So the top 5, the actual games are different. But we're looking to see, is the audience kind of growing? This gives us a measure of is the audience of blockchain gaming growing if we look at just the top 5. because obviously we saw some are growing and some are not growing. And actually we can see here, if you see the pink line actually declined from the start of January, where we were about 15,000 daily active unique wallets. You know, we have these weird spikes when EOS Dynasty had this spike. But in general, we've seen a kind of decline. It's not a massive decline. It's like 10% over 5 months. And there's kind of volatility. So there's downward periods, and actually we're a bit higher now than we were in March, because the EOS games are kind of doing better, and obviously we're doing a top 5. So the decline of some of the Ethereum games is being taken into account in the same way. So anyway, that's what we got for May. So May, I say, not particularly good overall for the sector, particularly impacted by gas prices on Ethereum. That will go away over time. We don't quite know if that will have gone away in June or July, or when it will be. And over the 6 months, there will be technology coming in to kind of sort that stuff out. But that doesn't change the fact that that May was not good for blockchain games, at least measured in terms of activity. Obviously, there are other things we could measure them by in terms of kind of NFT sales and that sort of thing. But this one, we're just looking at daily activity, which I think is probably the most kind of broad brush trend to look at, which is why I do it. Thanks for watching the video. This is Blockchain Gaming World, where we spend a lot of time considering and playing blockchain games and trying to make sense of it all. So if you're interested in that, please do subscribe. But thanks for watching the video, and hope to see you again soon.